Welcome to the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast, where we hope to inspire you to embrace your God-given gifts, skills, and passions in order to lead with confidence. We want you to remember that you are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, and you are fully loved by Him.
You have been designed on purpose by God with unique gifts and passions in order to love and lead those around you. I'm your host, Esther Littlefield, a pastor's wife, business owner, mom, and writer.
And I'm Esther's co-host, Holly Kane. I'm a wife, mom, and business owner. I also write at hollykane.org, where I focus on my passion for women's ministry.
Together, we chat about important issues that Christian women leaders face. In addition, we interview other women just like you who lead in various roles, from church to community to business. Through this podcast, we offer you encouragement, tools, and resources to help you on your leadership journey. We are so glad you're here with us. Welcome to today's episode. I'm Esther Littlefield, and I am here with Holly. Hey, Holly, how are you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm good. Today, we are going to talk about building a lifestyle of learning. So we talk a lot on the podcast about the fact that leaders are learners. And I always love hearing people's answers to those questions that we ask about that. And if you listen to this podcast, which you are right now, it's likely that you do have a desire to grow and learn. So we are going to continue in our series on wellness by talking about this concept of building a lifestyle of learning. So part of our wellness is, our personal wellness is really about staying healthy mentally, emotionally, and even intellectually. And so we just kind of want to dive into how to create some of the habits that will allow us to continually learn.
But I think one of the questions we want to ask first is, why do we even want to be learning? And if you are familiar with the Bible at all, you know that Proverbs is definitely all about wisdom and gaining wisdom. And so we want to look there first to see what the Bible has to say and kind of just glean some of that wisdom. So let's see what Proverbs has to say. So Proverbs 1:7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction." And I think if we're here, as Esther already said, if we're already here, we're looking for wisdom, we're looking for instruction, and we're looking for ways to sort of expand our knowledge and better our personal development. And so that's a really great place to start.
Yeah. Another one in Proverbs is Proverbs 4:6-7. It says, "Get wisdom, get insight. Do not forget and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, and she will guard you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, and whatever you get insight." I love that. I just think it's so just to the point, like just get wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't put this one in our notes, but in James, it also says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, and ask God for it." Because sometimes I feel like I lack wisdom, and it's not as simple as just getting wisdom. So sometimes we have to ask God for that.
Yeah. The next one, I actually read one Psalm and one Proverb every day. And so yesterday, this was the one I read, and this really stood out to me. It's Proverbs 8:12. "I, wisdom, live together with good judgment. I know where to discover knowledge and discernment." And I really like that one because when I think of wisdom, I kind of just thinking about always sort of knowing the next step, sort of knowing a specific path. But all of these other things are a part of that, but kind of really build it out for you and really kind of make that thought a little bit more meaty. Like there's good judgment, and wisdom will then show you where to discover knowledge and discernment. And I think I'm always looking for more discernment in my life.
Yeah.
Right?
And we're actually going to be talking later in the summer on the podcast about the importance of discernment as leaders. So I'm really excited about that because it is a huge thing that we need as we lead in our lives. So really what we want to kind of come to with this idea of why does having this lifestyle of learning matter? It's not just about learning new information, right? We're not just trying to be the smartest people on the planet. We are wanting to develop wisdom with the information that we learn.
Right.
So the other thing to point out is that with a lifestyle of learning, we're not talking about trying to make some drastic change, like going back to college or spending hours every day studying. There's some people that might do that, and that's awesome if you do that.
Mhm. Yeah.
But we're looking more at how we can develop habits that will help us to continually grow and integrate learning into our everyday life.
Hmm.
And sometimes this also includes having some kind of mindset shifts around how we view learning and approach learning. So let's talk about some of those mindset shifts and principles around learning.
So, we're going to talk about 3 different principles that you can use to build a lifestyle of learning. And the first one is going to be stay curious. So, I love this title because it just makes me sort of think about how children are always curious and they're always discovering things. And if you've been around a child as it kind of grows, I love watching them learn and discover new things. And there's a really sort of just a keen excitement about things. And
Yeah.
so it's important to remember to stay curious and stay excited. You're never going to reach the end of knowledge about things.
Hmm.
So just keep going, I guess,
Yeah.
is sort of the mindset around that.
Yeah, definitely.
And one of the first ways you can do that is to read and study. So, of course, books, podcasts, courses, things that you kind of automatically think of when you think of reading and studying, those are a great place to start. So, I actually love watching my son when it comes to this. If he is interested in a topic, he will come home often and say, I will say, how was school? And he'll say, oh, my friend and I are writing a book. And I'll say, oh, what is it about? And he'll say, oh, it's about snakes. And he'll say, oh, we went to the library and I got as many books on snakes as I could find so that I could write my book and have all the facts. And it just reminds me that when I want to learn about something, maybe enough so that I can teach it, that's a great place to start is reading and different podcasts. The amount of podcasts that are out there on different subjects is insane.
Yeah.
And the courses that are out
Right.
there are crazy. So, yeah.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like if you think about when we were kids, what we had to do to learn something, right, was either go to the library and
Yeah.
actually look it up with like the card catalog and all of that.
The
Or like we
encyclopedia.
had the encyclopedias. Yeah. I was in our house. We had a set of encyclopedias. So
Yeah.
I would go to the S encyclopedia and look up snakes. And that's how I learned about
Hmm.
snakes. So
Yep.
it's amazing, like you said, that the amount of information that we have at our fingertips that we can access when we want to
Yeah.
learn. So I think another part of staying curious is just being willing to ask questions. Like being the type of person who is always just, I mean, it sounds silly to say, but just curious, like
Hmm.
asking questions, looking for opportunities in conversations to ask people, if you're with somebody and they are doing something that you've never heard of or you've never encountered before, just ask them, how did they get started? Ask them more about it. It's just keeping your eyes and ears open to opportunities to learn more.
Hmm. And I think one of the things about that, as I think of sort of when I was in a job setting, when I was in sort of the working world, I remember feeling dumb asking questions. Like you kind of feel that when you ask a question, you put yourself in the position of like lesser than or less knowledge. So it kind of takes a little bit of a risk maybe to ask questions. But I sort of came off to people as though I was always going to ask a lot of questions. And so that was kind of just my MO. And whenever I was talking with people, no matter what the situation was, whether it was in a meeting with owners or whether it was a meeting with, other people in other departments, I was always, always asking questions and people expected it. So much to the point that when we would talk about things and I didn't have any questions, they would say to me, you don't have any questions about this? And I'd be like, no, which was
That's
super
awesome.
random. So I just want to
Yeah.
encourage you if you sort of feel that pang of like, oh, it kind of makes me look dumb or it makes me look stupid or that I'm not quite as far along as people, just sort of create that mindset that you're always going to ask questions, even if you know everything about the topic that they're talking about, asking people why, asking people their motivation, asking people what the end goal is. All of those different things are a really good way to figure things out and
Yeah.
kind of help you when you don't actually know
Yeah.
what is going on or you you don't know about the topic because you're already asking questions about so many other things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then I think on the other side of that is go figure it out.
yeah.
So in terms of
Mm-hmm.
staying curious, sometimes we just have to figure something out on our own. Sometimes there may not be a person that we can ask.
Mm-hmm.
And this might apply more if you are someone who is a solopreneur, or maybe you're wanting to learn how to set up a blog. Like there might be times where you just need to use the magical tool of Google and and Google it. And there is, like we talked about before, there are so much free information available to us at our fingertips that a lot of times, if you're wanting to figure something out, you can do it just by typing it in and finding some answers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think another thing to keep in mind with staying curious is not to be afraid of failure. And I think that goes in line with when you're trying to figure something out, there's probably going to be times where you might fail, right? You might find an answer, you might try that thing, and then it might not work exactly the way that they said on the video that you watched that it was going to magically work. And that's okay. Part of learning is failure. Part of it
Mm-hmm.
is being okay with sometimes we're going to make mistakes and it's not going to go exactly the way we wanted.
Right. Another way to stay curious is to just do it and then process how it went afterwards. Don't be afraid to just jump in and learn as you go. It's one of those things where you can read all the books you want about baseball, but if you don't actually get out there and get your hands dirty and swing a bat or throw a ball, then you don't actually know about baseball.
Yeah.
You don't know how to play baseball. You know about it, but you haven't ever experienced it. And so experience itself can give you a whole nother level of learning about something rather than just reading or learning or talking to people who do it. Doing it yourself will help you gain a whole nother level that you could not ever get another way. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. My daughter is always telling me that she knows how to do certain things. And like 50% of the time it's things that she has just read about.
oh
And then
yeah.
she says, "Oh, I know how to do that." I'm like,
Yep.
"Kirsten, have you ever actually done that?" Well, no, but I mean, I know how to.
Yep.
We'll
Oh
see
yeah.
how it goes when we actually get out there and try it.
Yeah.
So that's such a good point. And lastly, in regards to staying curious, I think that we want to just keep in mind to ask God what he wants to be teaching us. So I know that when I have that mindset of just asking God, okay, what do you want me to be learning in this situation, in my life right now, from your word, from other people, I will start to see certain things that I probably wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't been specifically asking him. And so sometimes it's like certain themes that will come up, and I'll hear the same theme in 4 different settings from 4 different people. And it's like, okay, God, I hear you. I can tell you're trying to teach me something. So our first one, like we said, was stay curious. So I think secondly, let's jump to our next one, which is stay coachable. And yes, we did do alliteration on this episode. So hopefully that'll help you to remember these things. So,
I love a good alliteration.
oh, yeah. So stay coachable is really the importance of being willing to learn from people who are further ahead than you and keeping a humble attitude about where you're at and that, like you said in the beginning, Holly, there's always more that we need to learn. There's always more that we can take in.
Mhm.
So some of that might mean, again, following people who are where you want to be. So this goes back to the idea that there's podcasts, there's blogs, there's courses, there's TV programs, there's books we can read, but specifically from those people that are further ahead than you, who you can be coached by, even if you're not in a one-on-one relationship with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that when you are following those people and when you are sort of seeking out that knowledge, and you kind of already mentioned that too, is to never have the attitude that you've got it all figured out. Sort of my son does the same thing that your daughter does, and feels like when he has read something, he knows all about it, and is willing to school just about any person that, that
Yeah.
wants to know about it. And so he kind of has that attitude of I've got it all figured out. And so a lot of times I just let him sort of fail
Yeah.
and let him see that he doesn't actually have it all figured out, and that perhaps he may have wanted to seek out some knowledge from someone who knows
Mm,
how to do it or who has been there. And, that's kind of one of those things that as a child you kind of have to learn. But I think we need to be reminded of that as we get older and as we've gained some traction in some areas, but perhaps we're not all the way there yet. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I really saw this play out a lot when I was doing a business with a direct sales company. And
Mm,
I would get new team members that would come into our team. And so we would be doing the trainings with them. And one of the things I would always say is you need to stay coachable. Like, this is really important for you to be successful. You have to be coachable. And so they would always say, oh, yes, 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 I'm coachable. I'm coachable. But everyone was always on board. But really where it came down to was when it was actually time to start implementing what they were learning, the people who were always more successful were the ones who actually followed the advice of their mentors
mhm.
versus being the ones who were like, well, I've done this before. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to do it this way. And those people just inevitably ended up not seeing the same level of success because they weren't actually coachable. They were
Mhm.
the ones who were like,
Right.
well, I've done this before. I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that is super important when we want to learn something, when we want to have an attitude of growth.
Yeah.
And again, this goes in with that idea of mentorship. So someone that you can watch, someone that you can kind of do life alongside. You can see them in their life, how they handle tough situations.
Mm,
If it's in a work setting, at your job, maybe there's someone who isn't necessarily your boss, but is someone who is further ahead in their career, and you can be mentored by them. And it doesn't have to be a super formal situation, but it's someone that you can put yourself in a position of learning from. So
mhm.
that
Yeah.
can really help you with moving forward in whatever area of life you're seeking to do that in.
Yeah. Kind of makes me think of discipleship too in sort of a more spiritual biblical sense. Not just in like the knowledge work sense, but if you have someone who is, like we said, further along than you, that you can watch how they, especially if you're in ministry and you can kind of see how people handle tough situations, it's so good. I think another part of this that I did when I was in a day-to-day job was even people that I'm not actually in a mentorship relationship with, I always watched how they interacted with people and just became a people watcher, if you will,
Mm,
and just watched how different people interacted during staff meetings, during higher level meetings. Kind of, I watched the questions that they asked and try to figure out maybe their thought processes behind the questions that they were asking. So, this is not necessarily specific mentorship, but if you are willing to watch people and learn both the good and the bad from what you see and sort of ingest that and process it yourself, that is another way to sort of, I don't want to say coach yourself, but sort of watch what other people are doing and have their experiences when they play out in front of you be sort of lessons, either good or bad. And so that isn't necessarily mentorship, but it is just kind of being aware of your surroundings and kind of who you put yourself around, and how they can positively impact your, I don't want to say quest for knowledge, but your self development or, those sorts of things. So,
yeah, definitely.
yeah.
I think too, accepting feedback is a huge part of staying coachable. So, and that goes back to the not having the attitude of I've got it all figured out.
Yeah.
Because if you can't accept feedback, then you're essentially saying I don't need your help.
Yeah.
And so it's, for me, this is definitely an area that I've struggled with, is accepting feedback, because I can take it personally. I can take it as criticism when someone kind of tells me, well, maybe you want to take it this way, or maybe you want to approach it this way. but it's so important to develop that skill of accepting feedback, accepting guidance. And like you said, both in a work setting, a business setting, but also in ministry and in just our spiritual development.
Yeah.
There might be times where we just need to accept feedback on our walk with Christ, or our, how we're parenting in our marriage. Like there's times where if we have someone who is guiding us in that area, they might have to redirect us. And sometimes God is giving us very specific feedback or direction.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing that we need to do, is be coachable by the most important relationship that we have, which is with God.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that on previous episodes, the idea of confession and staying open to what God might be teaching you. And so I think that goes right in line with this whole idea of being coachable.
And I think if you have the attitude of being coachable from a spiritual perspective, then sometimes those things that sort of pop up that feel annoying or feel frustrating, or, maybe they're not a huge crisis in your life, they are more apt to be able to teach you through those lessons. Like God is more able to teach you if you're like, okay, what are you trying to actually show me in this, rather than just, this person said that again, and that's so frustrating, and why do they think like that, rather than saying, okay, are you trying to teach me something here, or what can I learn from this, rather than, oh, I'm so annoyed. You know what I mean? Like, I think staying coachable changes that perspective on some of those even smaller things.
Hi friend, I'm jumping into this episode to let you know some fun news. The Confident Leader Club is going to be open to join around the end of June. If you're looking for a way to connect with like-minded women who understand how lonely leadership can be, if you want to grow and broaden your skills as a leader, and if you're looking for accountability to take action on your big goals, then I want to invite you to get on the waitlist now. Those of you on the waitlist will have the first chance to jump in when the doors open again. You don't have to lead alone, and the Confident Leader Club will provide you with the community you've been looking for. Head over to confidentleaderclub.com to get on the waitlist now. Now let's jump back into the episode.
So the next one is stay connected. And this is a really good one. I tend to like to isolate and find myself frustrated that things are not going the way I want them to. And then I forget that I haven't tapped into the connections that I've made in different ways. So this is a good one to remember. So intentionally connect with people who you want to learn from. Sometimes this may mean through free ways, and sometimes it might actually even mean investing money in being able to connect or be able to be coached by these people. So if you have people that you really admire, they're ahead of you in business or in ministry or whatever genre that is, sometimes you're able to make those intentional connections with people just on a free basis.
Yeah.
And that's really great. And that a lot of times just takes persistence, because sometimes those people have big audiences. But if you are continually connecting with people, not in like a slimy way, but in a just,
We're not saying be a stalker.
in a very authentic, appreciative way, then oftentimes people will want to connect with you and want to pour into you. So, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And then you had talked about this idea of working on a team. So can you tell me what you mean by that? Because I'd love to know.
So I kind of already mentioned it, but whether you're working on a team in ministry or whether it's in business, I always find that when I'm on a team, I learn something new about people. So I learn either a skill or a knowledge that they have that I didn't know that they had. It's kind of like networking, actually. But the more that you gain from these people, the more that you are staying connected with them and kind of learning more about them, the more resources and knowledge you have at your disposal. And one of the things I want to point out is that this does not just mean that, if you're in mid-level management, let's say that you want to get to like meetings with directors. Yes, that's true. People who are a little bit higher than you, maybe VPs or whatnot, any team that you're on, even if you're the one directing and you have people under you, you're going to gain insight and wisdom if you are in the mindset to be looking for it.
Yeah.
So I've always, when I'm in a team, have looked at it that way, because you can learn something from every member, no matter sort of where they are in the hierarchy of either the business or the ministry. There's always something to be learned from working on a team.
Yeah.
And even if it's not a specific, even if it's not a specific piece of information, just how the team interacts with each other, you can learn about team management and how to work well on a team just from being with other people. So
Yeah.
sorry about that. I cut you off.
That's okay. So I think that the best leaders that I have seen and observed are the ones who keep themselves open to that input from the team.
Yeah.
And don't just set themselves as, I'm the authority, I'm the one in charge, so you have to do what I say. And it's much more, like you said, keeping that connection between all the team members and the feedback loops open and all of that.
Yeah.
So the whole team benefits when you do that. So I love that point.
Yeah.
Another way to stay connected in this learning process is to take notes. And this might sound funny. And I know not everybody likes writing stuff down, but this is actually a scientifically proven thing that you can do to help you remember what you've learned. So when you take notes with a pen and paper, your brain remembers it better. And I think that will help you to stay more connected to what you are learning over a long-term process. In fact, I have stacks of notebooks that I will go back to because I specifically remember which notebook I took notes in for this, this specific course or this specific conference that I attended. I'll go back to that and I will read it, and it will be easier for me to remember than if I just try to remember with my own brain, or B, some people will take notes typing, and I think that's a second best option. But definitely taking notes, whether that's journaling, whether that is jotting things down when you're at a training or in a meeting, the person that you're meeting with is going to feel respected if you're taking notes on what you're talking about, because they're going to say, oh, wow, she actually cares about what I'm saying, as long as you're not just doodling and ignoring them. So I think that can help you stay connected in terms of what you're learning and what God is teaching you.
Yeah, I think that you are actually a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, but like you're more specific. You know exactly which notebook. And I'm like, where did I put that piece of paper that I was taking notes on that thing about? Which I love, because then I go back afterwards and I try to find it and I can't find it. So good job on you. Maybe write on the outside of the notebook what it is for.
Yeah. Or just have, you could also do it like chronologically, just keep one notebook for all your notes. But like I have this is my notebook for sermons, like for Sundays and for churchy stuff. And then I have a separate notebook for business and for clients. So I do kind of mix it up.
So another thing you can do is stay connected with other leaders who are on a similar path as you. This is actually a really good one. I've heard this in a couple different areas of application. When I was doing direct sales, they said have a running partner, someone who's at the same level as you, that's doing the same things that you can kind of, I don't want to use the word commiserate with, but someone who sort of really understands where you're at.
Yeah.
Now that I'm sort of in the solopreneur realm, they call it having a biz bestie, but like whatever you want to call it, it's someone who is sort of fighting the same uphill battles as you, who is kind of just in the same space, kind of slogging it along with you. And a lot of times you can learn from them, because oftentimes they have different personalities or different businesses or slightly different goals than you, and you can actually learn from them maybe a piece of your strategy that is missing, or vice versa. So it's really good to have people who are sort of shoulder to shoulder with you at the same level, that you're both sort of pushing forward either at the same pace or along something along those lines, that really helps you. In fact, when you're having a hard time, I find a lot of those relationships like that have been extremely helpful.
Yeah, because they are people that get it. They're the people who understand what this particular path is like.
Yes.
And they can relate to you. And give you encouragement when you need encouragement, and they can give you a little shove when you need a little shove. And,
Yeah.
so that is so valuable for sure.
They can help you make decisions that you don't know how to make.
Good point. Good point. I know nothing about what you speak of.
So I think that it would be great if we both talked about this in practical application in our own lives. What do we actually do on a day-to-day basis that sort of incorporates those into just everyday life? So Esther, I would love to hear what you do to be able to stay coachable, stay connected, and stay curious.
Okay. So a few things, I'll try not to make this too long, but a few things I do. One is I listen to podcasts pretty much on a daily basis, maybe not always daily, but pretty frequently. And a lot of people will ask me, well, how do you even have time to listen to all these podcasts, Esther? Like, that seems crazy. And so here's what I do. I listen whenever I am doing something else that doesn't require my brain power. So, for example, driving. I mean, driving does require my brain power, but
it should require brain power.
It does. But we can listen to something while we're driving. It's not like I'm watching a video. So I will listen whenever I'm driving. When I'm exercising, a lot of times I will, and that goes back to the physical wellness. I've been trying to make better efforts on that. So I'm doing that more frequently. So listening to podcasts while I'm exercising, and also housework. That's a huge one. When I'm doing dishes, when I am doing laundry, it makes it go by so much faster when I listen to a podcast or an audiobook. I go back and forth between those two. So that's one thing. Another thing is I do make an effort to read or study God's word on a daily basis, and also write and journal often about what God is teaching me. Now, again, as we've stated before, Holly and I are not perfect in any one of these areas. So there are definitely times where I'm not as consistent with some of these things as I would like to be, but that is what I try to have as my daily routine. I also read books related to faith, personal development, leadership, and ministry. And I already mentioned the Audible audiobooks that I do this with. And again, that's the same thing as podcasts. I do that when I'm doing other things. And then I also am very much proactive in terms of Googling or searching things when I need to figure out how to do something. So that could be business related. It could be something in the house. Like, it could be a number of things, but I will just Google it. And then I have invested in courses to learn specific skills that I have wanted to get better at. And this is really mostly in the business space. And I've also invested in life coaching to gain clarity around a specific decision or kind of a phase of my life that I've needed support in. And then I've also invested in business coaching and or masterminds in order to connect with other people who are doing what I want to do, or people that I need to learn from or collaborate with. So those are some of the ways that I've incorporated this lifestyle of learning into my own life. So Holly, what about you? How has this played out for you?
So you guys are not going to be surprised when one of the first things I say is podcast. In fact, recently my computer wouldn't turn on. And so I had to go to the Genius Bar, and the quote from the Genius Bar man was, "I've never seen anyone have this many podcasts on a computer." So please, if you're going to listen to podcasts as much as Esther and I do, make sure your settings are set appropriately so your computer does not download all the episodes of all the shows you've ever listened to.
Yeah.
Because your computer will not have enough memory to even turn on. So
there you go. You just learned something new right there.
It can happen. So yeah, I definitely listen, if not daily, every other day, multiple times a week. And sometimes I just will, if I need a little break, I will go and sit out on my patio and just listen to a podcast. And it will be whatever I'm feeling at the moment. And sometimes that is just a way to kind of shut off my own brain and listen to someone else's brain instead. So it is a great way for me to learn. I love listening to sermons as well, not just personal development, but I guess sermons are personal development. I think you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one way. And that actually kind of is another supplement to my daily devotional time. I like listening to sermons as well on podcasts. So I do that. Another one is I do definitely do a daily or try to do a daily quiet time with God. But another thing that has sort of made it more accountable for me is when I actually do a Bible study with a group of women or a group of people. It keeps me accountable and it helps me to have that top of mind to do every single day. If for some reason, I have personally found if for some reason I've had sort of like a slump where I have been kind of going through not actually doing that time every day, I'm like, okay, I need to find a Bible study. I need to find some women that I can connect with that I will do a study with. And that
Yeah.
always sort of revamps my
Yeah.
my intentions or my yeah.
Your habits. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, because it makes you it a lot of Bible studies will have homework for every day,
Yeah.
right? So it kind of creates that
Hmm.
structure for including that in your daily
Yeah,
life.
I definitely need structure. So when I can't provide it for myself,
Yeah.
I go out looking for it. So
Yeah.
the next thing I am actually super glad that I remembered and Esther didn't is personality tests. I really like learning about myself and others. And I learned this from Esther. She's the one who kind of pushed me into this and was like, well, you need to figure out what you are so we can talk about it and whatever
Mhm.
in whatever test, whether it's Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or, Strengths Finder, all of those different ones. I think that gaining knowledge about the outside world is hugely important, but I think also learning about yourself really helps you figure out how you interact with that knowledge and how you ingest the knowledge, how you use it, and sort of maybe the filters that you kind of see it through. And I think that's really important. So,
Yeah.
especially when we talked about working on a team, one of the biggest things that was super helpful in the business that I worked in was we did an entire day's, or maybe it was half day retreat where we talked about the Myers Briggs and we talked about how we work together as a team. And that was hugely enlightening on why people acted a certain way. And we learned so much about each other and were able to grow together as a team. So I would highly recommend those. And then from a business perspective, I have looked for certain certifications. So I was already using QuickBooks. And so I was like, you know what? Why don't I just get certified in this? So if
Mhm.
you're already doing something, you're already using a certain software, a lot of softwares have certifications, and that just gives more credibility to your skills. And oftentimes there's you need to go through some learning, but oftentimes, like I knew I could take the test right
Yeah.
off without having
Yeah.
to do much learning. And I am looking at different project management possibilities too, because I find that that's something that I really enjoy. And so I'd like to learn different models. And so right now I'm kind of in the researching sort of phase of which project management course I want to go through and figuring out what's going to actually work out for me where I don't actually already work for a company and can get project management
Yeah.
hours. So
Yeah.
yeah. And then one other thing I really enjoy is membership sites. That's really great for business learning. A lot of times there's a community that you can be involved with to sort of ask questions and other people. Those are where you're going to find the other people that are at the same level as you and that you can sort of relate to.
Yes.
And there's always new content that's coming out. Generally, that's how membership sites work. So even if you've made it through most or all of the content, oftentimes there's new, fresh content that's coming out. So you can always be learning. And usually those are at a little bit of a lower price point. So
Yeah.
they're a great
I,
option.
yeah. And I would just say I've done both of those things too. The certification, I've done one, and also membership sites have made a big impact for me
Yeah.
too. So it's been helpful.
And then just the last two quick things. If you know somebody that already knows how to do it, go ask them. This is Esther for me. Seriously, she is my she's my IT person. I am so bad at IT and I'm trying to learn, but I just don't get it. So I go ask her or I say, is this a thing that exists? Like, I want to do this thing. Does this exist? And she'll say, yes, here's what you need to do. And then 5 minutes later, I'll say, okay, I started to try to do this and I still don't know what I'm doing. So find people in your life, tap into the people that you already have in your life that already know how to do some of these things.
Yeah.
And
And sometimes you might actually need to pay them to
yep.
help you.
Oh, yes. Mhm. Yep.
So I'll just throw that in there. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you have friends who will teach you things pro bono, which is
Yep.
awesome. But
Hmm.
sometimes there are times where you need to say, hey, like,
Yeah.
what's your rate? I want to learn this thing. Will you teach me?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, it's awesome when you have someone already in your circle that you can learn from.
Yeah. And one final little thought is that you need to understand that some things will come more naturally and be easier for you than other things. And that's okay. I don't think that everyone is meant to know all kinds of things about everything, right? There are
Yeah.
certain things that you're just wired to be able to do more easily. We talk about this all the time. And so I think it's really a good idea to maybe start learning more about these things. But if you hit some serious roadblocks, maybe you're better
Yeah.
suited for some other stuff.
Right. And really that kind of this whole episode is about developing a lifestyle of learning. So we're not really talking
Yeah.
about this so much, but
Right.
I fully agree that when you get to a point where you realize, okay, it's going to take me way more time
Mhm.
and energy and mind, emotional energy, mental energy to
Yep.
learn this thing than it would for me to just pay someone else to do that. Right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
there's certain things in our lives. You think about your household, like I'm going to pay someone to do certain things in my home to repair my refrigerator,
Mhm.
then it would take me or my husband to figure out how to fix that thing. And, so there
Right.
are times where it just makes sense. And this, I mean, Holly and I have this relationship where she'll message me about her blog situation or, tech stuff. And then I'll reach out to her about bookkeeping and money because like those two things for each of us is like one of them is I'm naturally just more adept at tech and I've learned a lot through the years and
Mhm.
vice versa. You have learned so much about bookkeeping and finances and tracking all of that. So
Right.
it makes sense to utilize your network and utilize people
Yeah.
when you don't want to invest the time and energy learning that thing.
Yeah.
So,
And sometimes those people will give you the just quick answers, like the shortcuts maybe.
yes.
And not that I'm saying take shortcuts, but like it might take you a lot longer to figure out what your actual process should be
Yeah.
when these people can just say, okay, here's the process that you need to follow, here's the steps, and then you can go learn to do each of the steps. Sometimes that they help
Yeah.
you just get over that first initial hump, like what actually should I be doing, what's the process here.
Right.
And oftentimes they're very happy to share that information with you, but it should be mutual.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
Awesome. So, really, kind of just to wrap up our conversation, we want you to keep in mind that building a lifestyle of learning does not have to be complicated. It really might just be a few mindset shifts that you need to make. And to keep in mind this idea of staying curious, staying coachable, and staying connected.
mhm.
And I think it also doesn't have to take up a huge chunk of time because you can integrate a lot of what we've talked about into your normal daily routine. And you can be learning while you're doing the things that you normally would have to do anyway.
Yep.
So, when I think about podcasts and things like that, like I started listening to podcasts when my daughter was very young. And I know everybody's in a different phase of life too. So your daily routine and the quantity of things you consume may be very different from what it is for Holly and I, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But just looking for small ways that you can integrate learning into your daily lifestyle will help you to grow and be intentional in this area. But I think you do have to be intentional about it, right? You have to
Oh
actually
yeah.
be purposeful and say, okay, this is what I want to learn. And I'll just say one more caveat with this is that for me, I actually have to force myself to stop learning sometimes.
Yeah. I was just thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to turn the faucet off
Yeah.
because I need time to digest what I've taken
Yeah.
in already. Yeah.
Right. So if you're someone who's naturally bent to learning, then you might actually have to start weeding out. Like I've had to unsubscribe from some podcasts and
Mhm.
stop following certain things or certain blogs or tell myself I can only sit and learn about this topic for a certain amount of time before I start doing and taking action
Mhm.
because we
Mhm.
can get stuck there. So
And I've had to say to myself, okay, you need to focus and finish this book. You can't be reading 5 books at the same time because you're not actually retaining any of it.
yeah.
You're thinking about too many different things. So I've had to say, okay, you're 4 or 5 chapters into this one, pick one and go with it.
Yeah.
And just focus on that one rather than
Exactly.
reading, business development, spiritual development, fiction. I just have so many different things
Yeah.
going. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of just goes back to this idea of being intentional. So
Yeah.
I want to just mention that one way that you can be intentional about growing as a leader is to join our Confident Leader Club. So if you are listening to this episode the week it airs, then the Confident Leader Club is open for you to join. And if you desire to be connected with other women who are in similar roles, like we talked about earlier, and if you want to avoid some of the loneliness that comes with leadership, then this is the place for you. The Confident Leader Club is a monthly membership, which provides you with community, growth, and action. And what you get as part of the Confident Leader Club is you get access to our private Facebook group where you can connect and interact with other leaders who oftentimes are either business owners or they're ministry leaders. And again, they're very similar to you. And we have monthly leadership support calls where you can chat with myself and other leaders about the highs and lows. And so we have been doing that, and it's so much fun just to connect. And like you said, Holly, it's that time where people just get you. You can say something and they just get it. They understand, and they can
Definitely.
encourage you. They can pray for you. And then we also have our training library and additional video or audio resources released each month. And these are really designed based on the needs of the group. So you as a member of the group get to have direct input into the type of trainings that I'm creating, or sometimes I will bring in an outside presenter. Holly's done a few trainings for us, which is awesome. So we are really curating the training library based on the current members that are in the group.
Yeah.
And then finally, you have the opportunity to be encouraged to take action on your goals because, again, we don't want to just be sitting and learning. We want to take action. So we have a monthly take action call. And so that provides you the time and space to really focus and do something towards one of your goals. And then there's also accountability within the group, where we can share what our goals are for the month and really kind of hold each other accountable to those things.
Yeah. And I will say, honestly, those take action calls and the accountability were worth the membership right there. I was on the last one and I was able to get a couple people to look over a document that I was working on and give me insight and feedback. And it was great. And I don't know why maybe I just couldn't make it to any of the other ones, but this was the first one that I was able to make it to, and it was phenomenal. So even just that is totally worth the membership. So
right. Yeah. Because I think so often we as women, and when we think about this whole idea of wellness and what we've been talking about the past several weeks, we often put ourselves last. And we often put our own goals and our own things that we're working towards to the bottom of the list because there's always something else that's more important.
Yep.
And so that idea of that call and really the idea of the group is to say, okay, I'm going to prioritize investing a little bit of money into myself because it's going to help me grow and learn. It's going to help me connect with other women, but it's also going to help me move forward on what I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
So we would love to have you join us. This is only open for a limited time. So we have decided to just open a few times a year so that it really allows us during the time that we're closed to new members, we can really just bond and get to know each other, and everybody that's in the group really build some closer relationships. So if you want to join us, you can head to confidentleaderclub.com and go ahead and click to join us. And we would love to see you inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this episode after it has closed, so if you head over to that website and you don't see the option to join, then you can get on the waiting list. And that will allow you to be the first to know when we open again. And that way, as soon as it's opened up later on in the year, you'll get to jump right in.
Yeah. It's totally worth it. I love that community and they're very invested, and I've learned a lot from the people that are in there. So
yeah, we have some incredible women in the group. And in fact, I've just realized the women that are in the group are just as qualified to do trainings and lead some of the workshops as any one of us. So we're definitely going to have several of the members be able to provide some of that information too.
Exactly. Okay. So at the end of every episode that you and I are on together, Esther, we always ask a fun question. And so since we are in the summertime, I think that we need to have a summer question. And we've never done a would you rather question.
Oh, okay. That
So
sounds
we're going to
fun.
do that. So Would you rather shoot off the fireworks or just watch the fireworks?
I think I'm going to go with watch the fireworks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I do love fire. I mean, you know that I like fire, but there's something about fireworks that makes me a little nervous because, you can get injured by them and things like that. And here in Maine, it is legal to set off your own fireworks. And so we do sometimes do that when we go up to a friend's camp. And on July 4th, we will set off some fireworks. But usually it's not me actually doing it. I'm just standing back watching some of the guys do that. But I prefer to just sit and watch all the fireworks go off. I like enjoying the beauty of it.
Yeah.
So what about you?
Oh, I definitely like to shoot them because I love fire. So let me say a little caveat there. We shoot fireworks off at our spot on the lake. And so that is a really safe place to do it because there's lots of sand, like a beach,
Yes.
and then the water. So I have never, nor probably would I ever really do it in like someone's backyard or something like that. I feel really safe at camp to do this because there's a big wide open space. We're not like shooting directly over the forest, and the other thing about it is they can get really expensive. So you are literally lighting your money on fire.
Yes.
So we always go to like the buy one, get one sale. We get discount fireworks.
Do you go like on July 5th and buy them for the next year?
But no, it's so much fun. I love just like lighting I don't remember what it's called, like the fuse, and then like running for your life. Like that is just, it's so much fun. So much fun. And all the different ones that you can get, and they're so pretty and they're so cool. So anyway, that is a big thing at camp. All of the other people at camp love to do that. We let the other people spend the money on it and we watch their fireworks. But then there are some ones that you can do with kids. There are ones that are appropriate for that age and are not super dangerous. So, but I love to light things on fire, and fireworks is just one of the things I like to light on fire.
Okay. Nobody report us. We're not actual pyros. We are not going to burn anything down.
No, we are not. So, we are not. We follow all the rules and guidelines that we are supposed to.
We just enjoy the beauty that God has created. Allowing sparks to fly. And
I gotta say, there's nothing more relaxing than sitting out in nature and hearing a crackling fire and just sitting and watching. And I've had a lot of really meaningful conversations around a campfire. So it's a really good way to connect.
Me too. It's making me really excited to do all of that.
I know.
So we're recording this like a little while before it's actually going to air, which is awesome because we're ahead, but it's making me want to like go out right now and do that, but it's not quite warm enough yet.
No,
sitting by the lake. So anyway, well, thank you everybody for listening to today's episode. We appreciate it. We really hope that you can take some of what we've shared about this idea of lifestyle learning and apply it into your life. And of course, if you want to join us in the Confident Leader Club, we would love to have you do that. Again, just head right over to confidentleaderclub.com to join us. Thanks for joining us on the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast. If you're looking for additional support, growth, and accountability to take action, I would love to invite you to check out the Confident Leader Club. We only open the doors a few times a year, so you can jump on the wait list right now so that you're the first to know when the doors open. Or if we happen to be open when you're listening, you'll be able to join right away. I can't wait to see you on the inside. Now, don't forget, your leadership matters, and it's time for you to embrace your gifts and lead with confidence.